he and Charles Hanson and his committee have done to put together and bring to us some world-class speakers. I've noticed about Dennis that he is pretty hard to get a hold of because he's partying in Canmore, he's partying on the golf course, he's biking, he's everywhere somewhere, but he made time from all this active retirement to organize the speakers for today. So I'm going to call upon Dennis Little now to introduce our convener. Dennis? Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Brian. Well, one of the great things about organizing events is the great people that you meet and get to know. I feel that with the mind meeting of our convener, Mr. Richard Westbury. It was immediately apparent to me that Richard has a no-nonsense, yet witty approach to life that has been honed over a long lifetime of experience. He tells me he's 87 years old. Richard has a strong military background from his time in the Royal Navy. His professional background as a professional geologist started from his education with a BSc from the University of London. And it has been supplemented with many years as a respected consultant to the mineral industry throughout the world. I think you will quickly appreciate Richard's talents as the convener over the proceedings that are going to follow. Richard, the podium is yours.
It works. I'm allergic to microphones. I'm commonly known as Dick Westbury. I've been expressing inflammatory opinions for quite some time, as our future Mayor John Lord would testify. And I'm known as an opinionated old geezer, not only to my own family, but to many other people. And I noticed that a geyser is something in New Zealand that blows sulphurous gases and hot air, or hot water out of a hole in the ground, so you make that what you will. Anyway, this is a very worthwhile venture, and I hope it works as well as it deserves. I suspect it will. Thank you. I'm advised that I now introduce our first of the panel, my compatriot, David Atkinson, graduated from the University of Teesside in England in 1981, has worked for environmental and other related things for many years, and for the last 12 years with the city of Calgary in connection with water and river mitigation and so on. I've got a very nice bio note, 5 lines on him and about 7 lines on how I mustn't use this piece of information except in connection with this meeting. Government is watching us. David Atkinson, as a geologist I should be squabbling with engineers, but I respect your background and the monstrosity of your task. I believe the intent is that each of the speakers should have 10 to 15 minutes. You are speaking also for a larger world. I will make a loud noise when we get to 10 minutes and then shut up. Thank you, and please fire away.
Thank you. One little piece of useless information that I can give you was, as Dennis said, Richard said that I graduated in 1981. And I actually handed my last paper in on the Friday morning, got married on the Friday afternoon, went to the embassy on the Monday, got on a flight to Canada on the Wednesday. So that was 1981, so I've been here in Calgary, apart from a little stint in Lethbridge for about 8 months. So I know Calgary well, I love Calgary, I love its river, having come from an area that's very heavily industrialized, that the river was dead. So when I see the water and the watershed that we have, it is very much worth protecting. So I'm passionate about water, and I hope some of that comes across. There was a little bit of a straw poll on how many people got flooded. I'm just curious to my audience, who are engineers or geologists? Okay. Any lawyers in the audience? Okay, good. So this presentation is going to be a little, it won't be too technical. I'm going to talk about the mitigation program. I'm not going to talk about the emergency response, and I'm not going to talk about the recovery piece that is going on. This is about beyond that. What are we going to do going forward? So if somebody could operate the laptop, I would appreciate it to advance the slides. And I'm going to use this mic and walk around a little bit because I don't want to get in people's way of seeing the information on the slides. So the format of my presentation is around, I'm going to give a little bit of background on the basins, the watersheds, the event, the recovery piece. As I said, I won't talk to that other than just give a little bit of general information. And then the next steps. What does that look like for us? How can the citizens of Calgary get involved in that? And then there's a little bit of a time at the end of my presentation for some questions, and I believe there's some general time for questions of the panel later. The basins. So we know that there are two basins that come through Calgary, the rivers. There's the Elbow River and the Bow. Can you do that? Go, Terry. Thanks. Just to put it into context a little bit, we have Calgary here, we have Banff up in this area here, we have Turner Valley, Bragg Creek here. So we have two systems, the Elbow River that comes into Calgary, and then the Bow that comes up the Bow Valley. Just again from a drainage area perspective, just some context. When it gets to Calgary, above the Elbow, it's 7,800 square kilometers. 7,800 square kilometers, should I say. So about a quarter of that is upstream of Banff. So we've got a very large portion of the watersheds between Banff and Calgary. You look at the Elbow at Bragg Creek, it's about 800 square kilometers. The Elbow at Calgary, about 1,200. So about 2/3 of it is upstream of Bragg Creek. What we do know about the catchments is that there are mountain and foothills, and I'm stating the obvious of some of this. The key thing on this is they're flashy, they're quick, and they have a peaky response. The water, like in Colorado, comes down fast when it comes. Flood flow typically was around 10 times normal. Sorry. So, give it a little bit of information of the Bow River system. There are reservoirs on the Bow, in the Bow catchment, run by TransAlta. There's a number of them. Bears Paw and Ghost are the ones that are closest to us. And then there's a number that are up in the Kananaskis area and up toward Banff. Built primarily for power generation. Elbow River reservoirs, we have one, which is the one that is owned and operated by the City of Calgary. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. It's a very much a favorite walking place for my wife and I. That was built in 1932, built primarily for water supply. It's not a flood reservoir, a storage reservoir. We're able to operate it in a way that will provide some storage for floods that come in, but it really does have a limited flood attenuation capacity, up to about a 20-year event. Now, one thing that's important to know about this is that we can really only pre-release, when we know there's an event coming, around 160 to 170 cubic meters per second. And I will go into that a little bit later. That's really around the bank full capacity of the Elbow River. So, talking about the river, and we have a nice little cross-section of a river, which as an engineer kind of excites me a little bit. They're both mobile bed rivers, which what that means is that they're gravel deposits, boulders that are mobile. When you get the big flows, they move. Normally, if there was a 1 in 100 year event, they're about 5 to 6 meters in the bow above normal summer levels. That's quite a bit. Bank overtopping occurs on the elbow at around 170 cubic meters. So in the last slide I said that's the maximum really that we want to pre-release, because we do not want that flow going out of the elbow. And on the bow it's about 800 cubic meters per second. So if you remember those two as we go forward, you'll put it into a little bit of context. So the event, I'll talk a little bit about the event. So what we have here is basically some records that we have from around 1870, 1902, all the way through. And these are past flood events on the bow above the elbow. So you can see that this was the 2005 event, which was around about a 1 in 10 year event. And you can see in the past, going back to the 30s, even though the 30s were known as the dirty 30s, the dry, there was a bigger event than 2005, around about a 1 in 80, something like that. Going back into the late 1800s, there was an event that was in excess of a 1 in 200 year event on the bow. So I've got a slide later on that shows the 2013 event. So this was just to give you a little bit of information. You can see from the 30s up to 2005, we really went through a dry period. And that's important to remember when you look at this in terms of the rainfall, the flow, and then you look at what we think is starting to happen here. We've had, within living memory of most people, a very dry period. This is the actual event, and this is really it's about concentrations of precipitation, with red being the worst. Now you can see where High River is. Really, the epicenter of that storm was west of High River. What's interesting to me, if that had been further north, I can't imagine what the flow would have been through Calgary. But as it happened, it was centered over west of High River. So it was a very significant event. By the time we got out of Calgary, east of Calgary, it had dissipated mostly. But we're on the eastern slopes here, so that rapid rainfall came down at us pretty quick. This is a graph of the flow on the bow. So this is at the June 22nd, June 21st, 20th. So you can see that we got up, this is normal flow coming into the event, around 200 cubic meters per second. We actually got up to 2,400 cubic meters per second below the elbow, and about 1,600, 1,700 above the elbow. So significant rise, about 5-fold, etc. And then it tailed off over a period of time. This is on the elbow, and this is really significant in terms of we knew that this event was coming a couple of days before. We work with Alberta Environment and get as much information as we can. From an operating perspective, we had drawn down the Glenmore Reservoir to get as much capacity as we could. But what happened, it went from basically around 30 or 40 cubic meters